little while since we spoke to this gentleman. He is the iconic singer-guitarist, best known for his incredible work with the legendary band Grand Funk Railroad for many years now, out on his own, doing his own thing. New album coming on Friday called Closer to My Home. Joining us and welcoming him back to the show is Mark Farner. Mark, how are you, man? It's been a while. How's things?
Good, brother. I'm loving it up here. We got sunshine today and 60 degrees.
Where's that? Where are you living?
I'm in the tip of the mitt of the northern lower peninsula of Michigan.
Okay, so you're still in the Michigan area after all these decades, huh?
That's right, brother. I'm a homeboy.
Did you ever move out of there, or did you always stay there since you started?
I've been here since we started. I've been here since I was born in St. Joe's Hospital in Flint, Michigan, brother.
So you never did, like, even when you know, all the big success with Grand Funk, you never did the L.A. relocation or any of that?
No, because, you know, what we've got here in the tip of the mitt, there isn't any place like this on earth. We got clean water and clean air. I mean, all the lakes are clear. There's no muddiness to the water, and the fish taste wonderful, Eddie.
Well, you enjoy the nice weather right now, because I'm sure before you know it, you're gonna be freezing there, aren't you?
Yes, sir. You got that right. We're getting it done.
Hey, Mark, I want to talk about your record, but talking about the geographic area where you and the band broke out of back in the day in Michigan, you know, what was the scene like? You know, Ted Nugent's on this show a lot. He's come from that area. MC5, those guys sadly have all passed on, but just got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Did you have a connection with a lot of those artists that came out of that area when you were coming up?
Just nothing, you know, where we hung out together and chummed and jammed. I knew the guys. I had respect for them. You know, Wayne Kramer, man, he was like the killer guitar player from Michigan, you know, with MC5. And Nugent, of course, Madman, the Detroit Madman. I chummed with him some, but once we hit the road, man, we were rolling hard, and we had other, you know, smaller acts. Back then, you know, we had Santana opening for us. That was a smaller act than we were back then. Can you imagine that, Santana? Yeah.
Wow.
And Jess Rotzall opening for us in New York City at the Fillmore. Yeah. So,
how about Alice Cooper? Did you guys interact with Alice at all back in the day?
No, not at all. Even though Dick Wagner, man, I was with his band, the Bossmen, in Michigan for a year and a half playing rhythm guitar. I learned a lot of stuff from Wagner, and I wrote my first song as a result of hanging out with that boy. And my first song made it to the Grand Funk first album. That's the first song I ever wrote when I was 18 is Heartbreaker.
Wow. Amazing. And when you look at Grand Funk and you look at your history, you know what always strikes me that's so incredible about it, Mark? I mean, I think the first record was 69, if I have that correct. And
you do.
It happened so quickly for you guys. I mean, that first record came out and went gold or platinum or something like that. And it was just a couple records later, you guys are headlining stadiums. I mean, there's really nothing that can prepare you for that as a kid with success that quickly, right?
That's exactly right, man. And, you know, we made $350 a week for that first year. Terry Knight had us on some tight reins. But we were 20 years old. Brewer and I were 20. Mel was 19 when we signed with Terry Knight. So we were just young kids, man. We were very gullible. We were susceptible to be taken advantage of by people who were looking to do that.
And did that happen to you guys early on? Did you have a lot of bad deals and work with shady people? Did you get ripped off?
Yeah, man. I signed a deal with Terry Knight. He took all of the publishing for all of those first Capitol records in the first 3 years. He took all of my publishing.
Oh, because you just didn't know what you were doing?
That's right, and we didn't know because he had a production deal with Capitol Records, Eddie, and his deal, look, he told us, you guys, you're making more than the Beatles make. And we're thinking, wow, more than the Beatles. And we're believing what he's saying. This is problem with it, when you don't have a representative between the band and your management, and the management's telling you all this glorious stuff. He said we were making more than the Beatles. Well, we may have been. I don't know. We split 6%. Then we found out that the Capitol Terry Night Good Night Production deal was for 16%. And it just happened one day out of the blue. I'm in the attorney's office, and they are out of the room, and I sat down in the attorney's chair and had my feet up on his desk. Then when I sat up, my heels dragged across that big drawer that comes out of those old wooden desks. And here's the copy of the contract between Goodnight Production and Capitol Records for 16%. The band is splitting 6%. Terry is taking 10%. Then he has the gall to take a management commission of our little teeny 2%. I mean, dude, I could tell you. And a lot of bands did that because, we just wanted to make it. We were trusting people when we shouldn't have. We should have had somebody representing us between the management, but that was not happening, and that's how it happened. I mean, that's how we got taken advantage of, brother.
Are those bad deals and that business? I mean, with you and your history with Grand Funk, you've been in and out of the band a few times. I mean, of course, the band famously known mostly as a trio, although you've had other guys at times. But, is that difficult to keep a trio together? We know you're not in that band now. You haven't been for a long time. But does the business dealings come into play, which ultimately causes some of that division? I imagine it would.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason for the fourth player, when I come to find us out, through trial and error and experience, of course, I was not writing enough music where Brewer could, all the stuff that we co-wrote, he did the lyrics, I did the music. And it would happen like I'm jamming on something, and he says, what is that? And I go, well, I'm just getting it. He says, man, I'm thinking of lyrics. I say, go ahead, like Shining On. And when we did American Band, he came to me after we recorded down at Miami, and he says, Mark, I've never had 100% songwriter on any song. Do you mind if I take it on this one? I said, no, go ahead, because Eddie, I'm always I'm the brother. I don't want to be looked at as some kind of, I'm not a leader, know all the business and know all of the understanding of this business, so I have to lean on people that do. And so that's when I said, no, go ahead and take it. I didn't realize at that time, what was going to happen, that I was going to sign my 1/3 ownership of the trademark into the corporation, where it was told to me by Brewer that it would provide a protective umbrella and blah, 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 blah. I didn't finish high school, and he had gone to law school. I figured he knew what he was talking about. Boy, did he know what he was talking about. And I've been out of the band ever since, even though I've tried to put it back together. But the most important part of this story is I have forgiven them guys. I would get back together for the sake of the fans, brother. I would get back together with those guys because there's only 3 guys in the whole world that can make that noise that the people loved and bought. And they sold out Shea Stadium there in New York City, in 71 hours, and they were all sold from the ticket office, Eddie. There was no online sale, and it was $3, $4, and $5. So this is how it rolled for us early on, and we learned our lesson. And like I said, I have forgiven those guys, and I just say, for them to go out, it's legal what they're doing, but how honest is it? So, as long as I'm alive and sucking air and willing to go, there's always a chance that it might happen.
Well, that's just the thing. I mean, you referenced this. I mean, you just said it. I mean, thank God the 3 of you are still alive and still performing. And, I know I'm good friends with Bruce Kulick, who was in Grand Funk for about 20 years and left the band earlier this year. And when that slot opened, I think me and a lot of other fans said, hey, maybe this is the window. Maybe this is where Mark comes back. Because I saw you guys when you reunited. I saw you at the Beacon Theater in New York. I guess that was like mid-late 90s. And
Right.
it was magical, you know, and I'm too young to have seen you at Shea Stadium, but everybody heard the stories in 71. For people that don't know, Grand Funk actually sold out Shea Stadium quicker than the Beatles. And as Mark mentioned, yeah, there was no internet back then. So that was all, going to the box office. But, I mean, thank God you're all three of you are still with us, and you seem to have a great attitude. And judging from your new record, which we're going to talk about here in a second, you still sound great. So, no dialogue, though, it doesn't sound like, for that to happen.
No, nothing positive. It's all been negative from what I've been hearing. So, but I still got it, man. I mean, I still got the hope. And as long as, like I said, as long as we're all still alive, sucking air, it can happen. As far as I'm
Mark,
concerned.
that Shea Stadium show that so many people have talked about, was that documented in any way? Was that shot or recorded?
Yes, it was shot on 35 millimeter film, and the corporation controls that film. And it has been said to me that the reason, and just somebody who knows all of us, and they said to me, they'll never release that because you're the star of that show, and they don't present you as the star of the show when they're out now. They got some other guy. But I wish they would release it. It's got some great footage, man. There's some great energy. The New York audience, holy crap.
Well, you can say shit. You can say it. It's okay.
I can say shit. Holy shit.
You can say whatever you want. The thing I wonder is, it's such a historic moment that people still talk about, and I'm curious, with the Beatles, when they played there a few years earlier, the thing with the Beatles, people said that were there, were that the fans were so loud and the girls were screaming so much at the Beatles that it overpowered the music. Like they didn't have enough of a PA in there to properly let everybody be able to hear the band. I imagine a few years later, were you guys aware of that? And did you guys go in there and really crank up the PA and bring in the right speaker system?
Oh, yeah. Custom Audio Electronics showed up with stacks on both sides. And we were rocking, man. I mean, it was loud. But when we came to closer to home, Eddie, because of the half-moon shape of the layout of Shea Stadium, the audience was singing so loud, and the stage was set up at second base. I was absolutely floating on the energy of that crowd because they were singing so loud, dude. They were drowning out the PA. Incredible.
So even though you brought in beefed up PA, the crowd got so crazy that they even by the end were giving it a run.
Yes, absolutely.
I've gone to Shea Stadium many, many times in my life because I grew up a huge New York Mets fan, and for people that Shea Stadium's not there anymore, but it was a cavernous building. I mean, it was huge. So the idea of, there were a few bands, not a lot of bands played there, but a few did. And it was, it was a big, big place to do a rock show and to try to fill all that space with sound, especially, early 70s, like when you did it. I mean, I would imagine that would be challenging because they could put a lot of people in that building.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, Custom Audio Electronics put up some stacks, and they had some cabinets, some W cabinets and things that they were trying out they were really projecting the sound. And the people, man, were the frenzy because of songs. We'd start a song, and they'd as soon as they recognized the song, it's like, wow, they just roar, and it kept us. The band feeds on that excitement. The band feeds on that emotional rush. It's a wave that takes the whole stage like a tsunami, man. It's just wham, here it is, and this is the love, man. I'm telling you, that is it's like my country. The perimeter of that stage, that is my country, and when that emotion comes over like a tsunami and just takes you, that love, man. Wow, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, brother.
Yeah, well, I get it, man. And I know people that are a bit older than me that talked about that magical time, and you referenced it. I mean, look, I'm going to say it. I mean, nothing against the other two guys, but you were the star of Grand Funk Railroad. All my friends that are a bit older told me that. Your performance, your playing, your singing, I mean, it was all right there. So I truly hope that at some point that comes out, because people who were not able to experience that, I'd love to get a taste of what that looked and sounded like back in the day.
Right on. Thank you, brother.
So tell me about what's going on now, man. You've got this great record that's coming out on Friday. It's called Closer to My Home. And, you know, you were nice enough to send me a CD, which I appreciate. You signed it to me. I thank you for that.
Yes, brother.
I did not know this until I got the CD, that a very, very good longtime friend of mine produced this record. And it's a guy that all my audience would certainly know. But your new album was produced by Mark Slaughter of the band Slaughter. Tell me how that happened.
Well, we were doing Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, New York City, and Fishoff came to me and he said, listen, Howard Stern wants you to come over this afternoon and play I'm Your Captain on his show. And I said, you mean acoustically or with a band? How does he want it? He said, man, why don't you take the fantasy band, which we had Kip Winger on bass. We had Sandy Gennaro, from Joan Jett's band on drums. We had Teddy Zigzag from Guns N' Roses on keyboards. We had Bruce Kulick on acoustic guitar, Mark Slaughter on second, me on first, and we went over and did it. And we were doing it with the headphones on, but as soon as we started, I was like, damn, I can't get in touch with the band. So I take them headphones off and I just jerk them down, and they're resting around my neck. And now I'm in touch with everybody, and we're playing, we're rocking. And when we get to that midsection, am I in my cabin dreaming? And then here's Slaughter 2 feet away from me, Eddie. Am I in my cabin dreaming? And he's singing this thing right to me, 2 feet away, and I am like enamored by his voice. I said, after the thing was over, I said, dude, I didn't know you could sing like that. I knew you could scream sing, and you're great at it. A lot of excitement, but damn, son, you can hit them harmonies. And he says, I'm going to send you something, Farner. I want you to listen to it and get back to me. So he sent me some of his stuff that he had produced, and I didn't know that it was him producing. But I called him and I said, hey, that's great music. I said, I'm amazed at the mix, because in that stereo half a pie, I could point to where the guitar is. I could point to where the snare drum is. I could point to where the bass is. I said, what great separation, and you can hear everything. He says, I produced it. I said, no shit. He said, no, man, I produced it. He says, and I want to produce you. And when he said that, Eddie, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because I strongly communicate and I relate to Slaughter as a brother, not just a musician. We are all families in the business here, but more than that, blood brothers, because him and I both have that trace of indigenous people in our blood. And we worked together, and I was at his studio in Tennessee, and where we did our best work at, face-to-face, side-by-side. And it just evolved. Took 2 years to come out. But, he's a touring musician. I'm a touring musician. So he'd go out for a couple of weeks, and he'd come home, and then I was gone for 2 weeks. So that's kind of the way it was. But even though it took 2 years to get it done, we did get it done, and I'm very proud of it. And being that it did take 2 years, we had things that we changed that maybe, if it would have just been a project we did in a couple of months, we wouldn't have had that time to listen and go, hey, man, we need to go back and do this. So because of Slaughter's expertise and his love for me, I love him as a brother, and he loves me, and we play good music together. Well, we make good gardens together. We raise good chickens together. I'm talking anything we do is going to be good because of that love.
Well, I'm sure, and I know Mark very, very well. And like I said, we've been friends for decades, and he's not only a great guy, but a very talented guy. And I'm sure he's super stoked to have had the opportunity to do this with you, who would have certainly been a musical hero to him before you probably even knew each other. And, you're right. People don't realize with Mark, they know him as this, belted out singer from Slaughter, but he is also a very good guitar player and producer and writer, and he does a lot of different things that people don't know him for. So I was happy to hear you talk about him and talk about his contributions to the record, because in addition to producing it, he actually performs on it with you, right? He plays some instruments and stuff, man. Right? So it's more than just producing.
Yeah, he played some bass, he played some guitar. We're sitting there, we're doing a take, and the UPS man pulls up and he says, damn it. He says, I'm going to have to do that part over. Well, because, the truck came onto the tape there. And so he gets the package. He opens it up. He goes, oh, man, this is just what we need. He pulls this electric 12-string out of the cardboard box that it was shipped in, tunes it up, and lays it down right then at that particular part of the track that we were just recording. It was like things like that happened during this whole 2-year process. It was magic every step of the way, brother.
How about the material on this record? Now, we're going to get to the one song everybody's certainly going to know, because you did a new version of I'm Your Captain that closes the record. But as far as the material, the new material on the record, was it all stuff that you wrote new with for this album? Was it a compilation of things that you had kicking around for a while? Tell me about how the songs came together.
Yeah, Eddie, it was some of the stuff I did have kicking around for a while, like Tiny Fingers. I wrote that about our first son, my wife Lisa and I. I was there and I watched Jason come into the world, and I saw his little teeny feet and his little fingers, and this song reflects a lot of that emotion. And then we lost our youngest son in 2018. He was quadriplegic and on life support since 2010, and lived here, in our home. And this guy a keyboard player, Native American from Michigan, he wanted me to record the Tiny Fingers song for like 20 years. We were playing a biker gig down in North Carolina. It was outdoors, and we went over to do a sound check, and everybody's kind of just, plugged in and getting a different sound and trying to get their instruments up and running. And mine, man, it was like I plugged it in, it was ready to go. And so I walked up and I'm testing my microphone, and I started singing Tiny Fingers. It just came out. There was nobody, we're doing sound check. Nobody was in front of the stage. But then here comes 5, 6 guys walking down. Here's 10 guys walking from over here. Here's some people coming up from the left, some guys and gals. And pretty soon, there's a little crowd in front of the stage, man. I'm singing Tiny Fingers, and there's tears coming down their faces, man. They're holding their thumbs up like, man, that encouraged the hell out of me. And my keyboard player at the time, Paul Ojibwe, said, man, you got to record that. Do you know how important that song is? Well, Eddie, his daughter, 20-some years old, God rest her soul, she passed away recently. And when Slaughter heard me playing this song, he said, what is that song? And I said, it's Tiny Fingers. He says, that song has to be on this record. He says, not with a band, just you and a keyboard and maybe your acoustic guitar. So I told Ojibwe, when I called him, I said, listen, we're doing Tiny Fingers. And, he's been telling me for 20 years I need to do this song. But time wasn't right until it was right. And so I said, listen, Paul, you got to come and you have to play the keyboards on this song. He says, what? You're doing this song? Finally, after you asshole? And I go, yeah, I'm going to do it. He says, come on, tell me where, tell me when, I'll be there. So I got him to come up. We recorded his keyboard parts and to a demo or, you know, a scratch vocal that I put on there so you know where the hell you were in the song. And then I put my acoustic guitar on at the same time. And after we got done playing the song and recording the song, then we sat next to each other at the console and ran that song. And both of us, man, dude, we bawled. We were just bawling. Yeah. It was such a freedom that we felt, such a connection, because, you know, we don't think about this enough, but we're only in this body for just a short time. And and the spirit that dwells within us, that, man, when that goes on, that's love. And that goes on into love. And the only thing we take with us when we go is love. So it was love pouring out of us. And I think people are going to get that when they hear Tiny Fingers. Like I said, it's 20-some years old, brother.
Yeah, well, it's a great mix of material on here. And the thing that I got to ask you the obvious question about, which is out now, actually, and has been out for a little bit, is we talked about your early history with Grand Funk. 55 years later, a song that you wrote and sang, and it's one of the all-time classic songs ever, I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home. This new record closes with a new re-recording, a new version of that song. So whose idea was it to do another take on that all-time classic?
Well, we all thought that it would be a good song because since, for the last 15 years or so, it might be 17 years by now. But I have not been playing in the American standard A440. You know, the tuning standard for the U.S. and a lot of the world is A440, 440 hertz. Well, it got changed from 432 to 440 in 1953 under Rockefeller's, and I don't know why he wanted it to go to 440, but when you got that much money and influence, as we see these days, people that have money and influence are doing things that we didn't vote them in there, but they're doing things, you know, that are phenomenal. But he changed it to 440 back then. I have been playing in 432 for many, many years. I did the Happy Together tour with Flo and Eddie and Dave Mason and Felix Cavalieri and Rick Derringer. And, you know, a bunch of us get together and go out and do a tour with Flo and Eddie, the Happy Together tour, and we do the Hippie Fest tour. And I got those guys to do it in 432. And the difference is, you'd have to see this, but I can tell you, it's very compatible. The frequency, the tuning standard is compatible with everything that is natural. 440 is definitely like running into a post. It is, the tuning is out of whack with things that are natural. So it's got a rub to it. And now that I've recorded this version of I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home in 432 tuning, man, I think because of that ability that it has, and it's a frequency, and people don't understand about frequency and how much frequency has to do with our lives, man. The frequency of gemstones that, they used to make these water pitchers out of alabaster and out of these precious gemstones back in the days of Cleopatra. And then she would take a bath in these pools made of all these gemstones because they got different energies and they carry a frequency. And it's very therapeutic if you do it right and if you understand it. But we've gotten so far away from it. Frequency, let's see, I'll grab my phone and look that up.
Yeah, right. So. Mark, I'm curious. This song, I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home, clocks in at about 10 minutes long. It's incredibly unusual for a song that long, whether now or I would think even in 1971 or 70, whenever you did it. for a song to make an impact like that, to get radio play, to become a classic. There are some, obviously, Free Bird, Stairway to Heaven, but they're far and few between. What was it? I imagine the initial song when it came out, that it became that huge, being that much of an epic, had to be surprising to everybody, including the record label. Do you remember that whole process at the time, and like how it became a single and how it took off even at that length?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Eddie, that everybody listened to the radio in their cars back there in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and they were all AM radios. And AM was where you heard all of the pop stuff and, all the commercial stuff. And then FM comes along right when we start as a band. FM, these guys that get on there and play long cuts, and these DJs, they were like our mentors. They were keeping the rock community together. They were bringing in songs. I remember a guy in Flint, Michigan, man. He brought in Deep Purple's Hush, and when he played Hush, man, the Flint, Michigan caught on fire for Deep Purple, man, and just that song. I mean, music does it. Well, all these guys told me years later, and even up to, the last time I was out and I was talking to a jock from back then, he says, man, I want to thank you, Farner, for writing that song. He says, because if I had to take a shit, if I had to smoke a cigarette, if I had to get a sandwich or a coffee, I could get it all done during that song. I said, well, man, I appreciate it. Thank you for playing it. And
totally, Mark. I've been in radio. This is my 41st year in radio. So when I started, back in 1983, and at that time, I was queuing up albums. I mean, there were no computers. There was no, you couldn't walk away from the turntable. If you weren't there when the song ended to hit the next song, it was going to dead air. So I know well that you loved when you saw a song like Green Grass or High Tides or even I'm Your Captain come up, because it gave you a chance to go back to the fridge, get a drink, go take a dump, whatever you had to do, because there was no autopilot, man. And those were the days of really DJs really being DJs. You had to be, there was an art to it. You had to be on the ball. You had to segue those songs the right way, because you couldn't just push a button on a computer and walk away. So there was a benefit to that.
And because of that, Eddie, you guys, your creative nature showed up, and even in the songs, in the progression, the build up, you had a dynamic you were working for, and even with commercial breaks and stuff, they finally started coming along in FM. But when they first started playing "I'm Your Captain," there was no commercials. It was just like all music, FM, great. And then, like you say, having to be there to lift that arm out of the groove, man, on the player and start the one next to it, and the timing, and having it planned out in your mind, because you have the dynamic, and it was in you guys, in the DJs, and that's what it was like, close your eyes, because the video is going to play in your imagination. This is no video assistance. It's kind of like, I liken it to when somebody reads a book and then they go to see the movie and they go, man, that movie sucked compared to the book. I mean, I've never heard anybody that really liked a movie of a book that they had read, and it's because I believe because of our God-given imaginations that have been stifled, and we got lazy because there was a video to watch, and so it was somebody else's imagination. But I was doing an on-air at WNEW New York City, and the guy was telling me they asked 100 people to write their definition of the song Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. And he says, Farner, man, we got 100 diversely different definitions. Not any two were even close. So, that's what's beautiful about the music. That is what is beautiful about what happened during those days and when you guys were spinning the tracks, you were making the movie for us.
Yeah, and of course that was a totally different era as well, because it was, radio stations were regional, they were independently owned. It wasn't one company calling all the shots. Now if you don't get on a playlist with one company, you're pretty much not on the radio for the most part. But usually when you hear about songs like this breaking out of a certain area, usually when you hear about a song like this becoming this iconic song, it usually started because one person in one city somewhere stepped out, because back then you had that autonomy. You could do that if you were a radio host. Where did I'm Your Captain break out of? Was it in the Michigan area, do you remember? Or did it just kind of happen overnight everywhere?
Well, I think it mainly was Cleveland, and we recorded it in Cleveland. It was the Cleveland Orchestra, the Philharmonic, and Tommy Baker, who was the band leader of the Upbeat Show, which was a regional rock show on Channel 5 out of Cleveland, and owned by Herman Spiro. And I think you know David Spiro, his son. David managed Joe Walsh. He managed so many people, man. He managed Dave Mason for a while. But we would go over, to Herman's place after we did the television show with James Brown and Mitch Ryder and Detroit Wheels, all these people back then. But we go over and have a barbecue in the Spiro's backyard and play tag football with the kids. This is when moms and pops and grandpas and grandmas owned all the stations, and there was moral conscience over what our children saw and heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting when you look back on that time. It's really was just a totally different era, and Cleveland was an area that broke out a lot of these songs. I know Rush broke out of Cleveland, and they had some epic songs as well. So it's really interesting to look back on that time and how these songs have stood the test of time. And I think it's cool that you've done it totally. It's still very close. The idea of doing it, you still kept it within the pocket of the original song. You didn't do anything radical to it, but you talked about that tuning approach, and obviously doing a 2024 version of it was the idea. I'm curious, Mark, one last thing on this new record. I talked to so many artists that have these incredible catalogs like you do that you can pull from, whether it's your own music that you've done solo, whether it's Grand Funk Railroad, whatever. And every artist I ask this to, I usually get it's like 50-50 down the middle, different answers. Some will tell me they will not make new music anymore. They don't see the point. They can't sell it. People don't want to hear it when they play live. They're just going to play the catalog, the roads where it's at, play the hits. And then there's others that are like, hey, I don't care how many people buy it, play it, whatever. I'm a musician. I'm a songwriter. I need to create. I need to make new music every couple years. For you, when you've got a catalog like you have to pull from, what is the driving force for you at this point in your life to continue to make new music?
I'm the second guy, Brother Eddie. It is the creative force within me. I never listen to the radio when I'm in my truck or I'm in my car, and because I'm open to hear songs. I'm open to hear melodies. I'm open to hear lyrical content, some rhymes, some things that make sense, and to talk about things that people would relate to, and even to talk about things between the lines as we have done over the years. And my fans understand who I am, and my songs say who I am. I am who my songs say I am, man. And that's who they expect to see when I get on that stage, brother. And so this new album, I am proud to be able to get up there and give them a couple at a time. But I will always play the hits for them, because I know that a lot of people come, to hear Some Kind of Wonderful and Locomotion and Bad Time to Be in Love and American Band and all of the hits that we've had. So those will always be in the set, but I'm going to always keeps my ear to the ground for new music, and the other ear to my heart, and produce what I believe. I think a song could save the world, man. And I don't care if it's not mine. If it is mine, cool. I mean, but if it's love at work, who gives a shit? As long as the world gets saved.
What is your plan for playing live? Do you have dates lined up? Are you going to go out for this record?
Oh yes, yeah. And I'm with TKO, and Jim Lenz is my agent.
I know Jim.
And
good guy.
Yeah. We are tight. And he was out to the studio. He was out to Slaughter's studio and listened to this new version of "I'm Your Captain" closer to home, and he was blown away by it. So he's definitely in our pocket there. During this winter now, they've got some other conventions, fair buyers conventions, things where they'll be selling more dates, but I am going to do some of these dates with the portable Vietnam Veterans Monument, the wall, so that some of the towns that we end up in, people will be able to come and see the wall and experience the monument without having to go into D.C. And those dates that we're doing, the veterans will be allowed into our concerts for free.
That's beautiful. That is awesome. Just to let everybody know, Mark's album that we're talking about is, again, called Closer to My Home. It is out everywhere this coming Friday, and you can get some different configurations on this. There is the CD version as a bonus track, Friends Forever, and the LP is collectible red vinyl. If you also do the pre-sale or the pre-purchase, you can get an autographed copy as well. So there's a lot of different places that you can get this record. And the website is markfarner.com, the Facebook, Mark Farner's American Band, and on YouTube, the channel is Official Mark Farner. Mark, I'm running out of time here. I could talk to you forever, but I congratulate you on this record.
Thank you, brother.
And it's always good to hear your voice. You sound great. The record sounds great. Anything you want to share with the audience before I let you go?
Yeah, it's like what Bob Marley said. Emancipate yourself. You are the only one that can do it. Set yourself free. Don't allow yourself to fall for the snare of debt consciousness. Debt consciousness is the downfall of the human race. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. Those who wish to place us in debt and manipulate us, we don't want to hang out with them people. We want to hang out with people, some rockers who want to be free and keep our music playing so that we can be free, stating our mind, stating our heart in song, and having followers who believe in us and who lift love up like we do. All for love, brother.
Hey, one last thing on that note before I let you go. I got to ask you about it. I believe, and many others believe, that Grand Funk Railroad, not having been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or on the ballot yet, is a travesty. We've seen some progress there. Foreigner just went in. Frampton finally just went in. Long overdue. Where does that sit with you? Is that an important thing, or are you kind of indifferent about it if it were to happen?
Well, I got the Cherokee Medal of Honor November 5th in 2004. So personally, I don't need to be inducted. For the fans' sake, I would love to have been inducted. And if it was, if the fans had anything to do with it, where we'd be sitting, Eddie.
Right.
But it's political, and the only reason Grand Funk is not in there is because we don't have that brown ring around our lips.
Well, hey, I had Lou Gramm on this show a couple years ago, and I talked to him about what a joke it was that Foreigner wasn't in. He said something similar to what you said about Foreigner's situation, and a year later, here they are, they just went in. So I know For the fans, it's important. It's certainly deserved. It would also be great because it would bring hopefully it would bring the three of you guys together. As we mentioned, the three of you thankfully are still alive, and it would be a wonderful, wonderful thing to have happen. I'm a voter. I'm not a nominator, but I'm pushing for it, Mark, and I think it does have to happen, and hopefully maybe this conversation can help inspire it a little bit. But you're 100% right.
Yes.
There's so much misinformation out there about it. There are people that think, and even artists that think, the fans make the call on that. They don't. You're right. It's got to be done internally, and hopefully common sense will prevail, and it'll get done because it should happen.
Amen, Brother Eddie. Thank you, man. God bless you. It's been good, as it always is, and God bless you and Hair Nation Channel 39.
Thank you, buddy. Much appreciated, Mark. I'll be on over there in a little bit, but good luck with this record, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, brother. Bye for now.
See you, man. Bye-bye. There goes Mark Farner. I think Mark thought maybe Mark thought that interview was on Hair Nation. That show's coming up in 14 minutes. But regardless, thank you to Mark for joining us here on Faction Talk 103 on Trunk Nation. That was awesome. Like I tell you guys all the time, it is a tremendous jolt to me every time every time I get a chance to talk to and share with you the artists from the 70s. I get Joel, what do we got a break here or we don't? We got the double, we got the triple. What do we got?
We got about 90 seconds left in the show. We can take it right now or after a break.
So if I do a quick break now, will I come back and wrap up for a couple minutes?
No, you'll have about 60 seconds.
Well, we might as well just plow straight through then, right?
Yeah, I think so. We got about 90 seconds here.
All right. Well, we're going to end a little earlier than we normally do today. It'll also help me get over to Hair Nation. And obviously, it's because we went 2 super long segments without a break. So we got to get the time in wherever we get it in. So, but anyway, super cool. You talk to people with that history, 55 years, headlining Shea Stadium. Guy sounds great. Such a great attitude and such a great, he just sounds so into it still, which is so cool. I think he's 76, something like that. And clearly, from listening to the record, he can still do it, too. He's just very, very good still at what he does. So cool Mark Slaughter worked with him. I'm sure that was a big thrill for Mark as well. Anyway, great stuff. Huge thanks to Mark Farner. I'm sorry you don't have time for your calls. We'll try to pick up on some of that tomorrow. Get some of you guys in. We broke down a lot of stuff today, as is usually the case coming off of the weekend. Tomorrow, Duff McKagan joins me live. We'll talk to him for a bit. Look forward to that. Rock news, all that. And coming up at the top of the hour, because it's Monday, I'll be live over on Hair Nation for 3 extra hours. Okay, thanks again to Mark Farner. Have a good rest of your Monday. Catch you guys tomorrow back here on 103 and in a few minutes over on 39.